Boys and girls, Alex here. As I probably have mentioned in a few of my videos, I do a bit of lurking on woodworking forums on the internet and try to intimidate as many members as I can. And the latest one I've been hanging around on is Craftesian, and I've noticed that a lot of the members are showing interest in laser engravers. And on one of the blogs we got into the topic of logos, because one of the traditions of woodworking is after you finish a project, on the bottom of it you usually scroll your initials and the date you did it. Well, one of my favourite ways of marking up timber is to engrave and wood fill, and I thought, hey, why not use my avatar from the Craftesian site as sort of my signature and the date. And I came up with this little piece of rubbish. The bit of timber is 80 by whatever it is, so basically that logo there is going to be something like about 50 by 60. The smaller one is 25 by 20 because I actually measured that. That being 80, well, I'm guessing that. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I thought I'd make this up just as a trial run. And I noticed that a lot of the wood filler was concave, and even to the point where I blew through, I call it blowout, which is basically where you sand through the filler and start hitting the timber underneath the filler. And I just blew out a little bit there. So I thought, damn it, I'll fill it in and sand it back, but it didn't turn up too well. And then on closer look at it, it was pocked. When I say pocked, concave everywhere. Now, I was trying to figure out why the hell that was happening. Now, what I do, or did, was I'd use my Ross. Now, this is my favourite go-to Ross, but it's got a very, very soft base, as you can see. And what happens when you wood fill an engraving and the wood filler is moister than normal, or it's moist, it tends to, well, as you spread it out, you go over the engraved part and get into this wood part on the perimeter, and it tends to leach into it, sort of like stain it to some degree. And when I go to sand down the wood filler, I find that I tend to put more pressure on the perimeter than on the other bit. Normally I would sand with a flat surface, but when I get to the perimeter, I tend to put pressure on the edges. Now, wood filler, while it's a bugger to try and engrave, you can't engrave it, it's tougher than concrete. It sands much easier than the actual timber. And I believe what's been happening is, as I'm putting pressure on it, it's just taking away, the padding gives, and it takes away more from the filler than it does from the wood. And I thought, well, bugger it. How am I going to overcome that? One of the things I've got to try and do is to minimise the leaching, or at least have a decent way of getting rid of that perimeter tainting without damaging the actual thing. So I believe I engraved deep enough, but what I need to do is maybe, well, I'm going to give it a try and I'll walk you through what I do, is prepare the timber. Normally I just get a bit of wood and start engraving. Well, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this a bit, because this has been sanded, I think, to about 150 or 180. I'll sand it maybe up to 240, maybe even 320. What that hopefully will do is it'll sand away some of the pores to the point where you won't have the gaps there for the filler to sit in. So anyway, the first thing to do is, I'm not going to use this soft pad. I don't know whether I've got a harder pad. However, I have got another sander. Oh, I've got to try and hang on. It's all caught up in the thing. I've got as I said, a pad which has got a much harder pad. I'll start off with 180, but it'll only be a very light pass of 180. I don't particularly want to go too aggressive, just to get rid of some of the major things. So anyway, while I sand, I'll shut up. Take off the 180, slap on the 240. That is actually coming up quite smooth. For all of you, those that don't know, I'm actually running Festool with a Bluetooth battery. It's cordless, so when you turn on the battery, it actually, through Bluetooth, turns on the dust extraction. Although admittedly I wouldn't have to, because I've got a on-off button here on the end of the hose, but if I didn't have that, the battery would take care of it. That's getting smooth. Look, I'll give it a 320, only because I've got plenty of 320s. I hardly ever use it. I bought a box full of the bloody things, and I usually only go up to 240, so I thought, well, damn it, I might as well use it. Now that is smooth. So look, what I'll do is I'll go up to the laser room, because at the moment I'm down in the dungeon, or you might call it a workshop, and engrave the same pattern as that. I've actually done it before, but I hadn't showed you how I filled it in, so I thought I'll reshoot the video and show you how I do apply the wood filler. You know, most people might say, bloody wood filler, anybody can do it, but there is a trick to applying wood filler to engraving. So okay, I'm going to go upstairs, engrave this. That should only take about 15 minutes, if that. No, well, I've got a big head, so it might take 20 minutes. And I'll be back. Right, I'm back. Now that took about 10 minutes, couple of slices of salami and a glass of vino. But you're not to know that. It's been engraved. It's gone down to about, I don't know how well you can see the depth. It's down about, whoa, again, always the wrong way. It's down about 1.5 mil. Bring it back out again. The thing, when you're body filling it, you've got to bear in mind, if you have a look at this particular one, you'll notice in the middle of the moustache, there's a little bit of a white thing which represents probably a bit of the lip or whatever. You've got to bear in mind that that is now really a little pylon, a little tower, amongst all that vacant engraved away that's going to be filled in. Now if you just scrape wood filler into that, there's a great chance, and again if you bring it down this way, you're going against the grain, so there's a good chance that you could then break that off. So straight away, what I've got to remember is to try and fill with the grain, but also rather than just drag it across, push it down to build up around it and then drag the top across to smooth it so you don't break that little bit off. In the smaller one it probably, well, it might even matter even more. but the point is when you push it down, push the filler down, you're going to compact around it more so than maybe this. Look, I don't know, but that is my theory. I'm not going to sand this. There's a bit of charring around there. However, what that's going to do is inhibit the leaching of the wood filler. I'm going to go and get the wood filler, and then we'll continue with that on this piece. What I use is Timbermate. Oh, there we go. Timbermate. I'm using ebony at the moment. I usually tend to use ebony or jarrah or walnut. However, I like ebony because it's nice and dark. The consistency is not too stiff, but it's still runny enough to create that problem. So, as you'll see, what I will do is I'll push down and then drag across, rather than just drag across. Push down and then drag, push down and drag. I might even overfill where I know there isn't some of that, those little pillars. I won't care too much about it because there's nothing to pull over. But where I know there are pillars, that's where I've got to be careful. You sort of get used to this motion of pushing down and pushing it into the void and then dragging across. It actually takes quite a bit of wood filler, which it could be a waste. It's just more a case of, look, I've got my laser set at a particular thing and I just don't stuff around too much experimenting. Now that I've got that, I will get a bigger spatula, not that big, and drag that across to actually flatten it out as much as possible. I'm not that concerned because I will be putting another coat on, but it's more a case of just to try and flatten that out, get rid of the major ridges so that it will dry out quicker. Now, because of the depth, this is going to take a couple of hours to really dry, especially down where it meets the timber. And what is it now? It's getting close to 8 o'clock at night, so there's no way known I'll be sober enough, no, not sober enough, time enough to do it before I go to bed. Make sure you clean up your trowel if you use that bloody Timbermate, because it sticks. It's really brilliant the way it sticks. And if you don't stick it, if you don't clean it up, you've got to wash it off. And if you wash it off, you've got to make sure you dry it properly, because there you can see the residue of the dust, rust, because I didn't wash it off properly the last time. Seal your Timbermate well, mate, otherwise it'll dry out. Brilliant stuff. If it dries out, add a bit of water. Alright, tomorrow morning I'll be back to continue with this. I might even take it upstairs to where it's a bit warmer because it's quite cool down here in the workshop. It's about 25 degrees, but it's getting closer to 30 degrees, that's centigrade, upstairs in the house. The workshop being under the house is cool. Alright, I'll see you in the morning. It's AM now, and it has dried quite well. I'm going to give it a light sanding, come here, of 240. All I want to do is basically remove or flatten out the wood filler, so I can then, what am I trying to say? So I can then give it a second coat. So just a quick pass over. Now you probably can't see it. I haven't gone ape shit over the edges as yet. You can see where it's already leached into it. Now, if I sand that away, the next layer is going to leach into that as well. So I'm hoping that this next skim coat, and that's all it's going to be, a skim coat, is not going to make that much worse. And hopefully, as I say, when I come back, I should be able to sand that away quickly. Now, as I said, this is just a skim coat. I only need the smallest amount to cover up any hollows, indentations I had. As you can see, I virtually got everything I put on. And again, I'll use the big spatula to flatten it all out. And that's it. Now that's so thin, that should probably dry in about 15-20 minutes. Well, I'm going to duck upstairs, have some breakfast and a vino, and I'll come back and yeah, I'll come back and finish sanding. It's already dry and I didn't even have time to have breakfast, though I had time to have a vino. Okay, I'm going to put on, what am I going to put on? 180 and start sanding and see where it goes. Now what I'm going to do is try and sand away all that black around the perimeter, and again the intention is not to reduce this too thin because it's quite thin, but we shall see. The important thing is to keep the sander flat and not try and put any undue pressure on it. So the intention is to sand it evenly all around, and I can feel it, it is smooth. But here we go. This might take a bit longer than I normally would, because normally I would put pressure on these spots to remove them, but with even sanding it's going to remove just as much timber around the edges as that, so it might take quite a few seconds to get down to the right level. Still a little bit on the edge there, although this is getting close to what I would just about accept, but again just on the edge there. I'll keep at it, maybe just another 0.1 of a mil or whatever, and that might do. The important thing is to make sure I keep everything flat. Okay, I'll give it a go with the 240 now. That's just to get rid of all the 180 scratch marks. Right, look, that's about, oh look, I might even give 320. Yeah, look, I'll give 320 a go. I don't know whether it's going to make much difference, but is that 320? Yep. Why not? The sandpaper's out there, so let's go for it. Right, I think that's about it. Now, the big decision really is whether I should oil this to really make it pop, or just go over to the buffer and buff it up, which I think is what I'll do. It's fairly thin, so I'll have to use a backing board for it. We'll see. For those that haven't seen my buffing setup, I've got a slow speed bench grinder, which is basically half speed, loaded with the Beall buffs. I've got triple E pad here, white diamond, and I have a wax pad that I usually swap one of them out for with this, but most of the time I'm too bloody lazy, so I've actually got a wax pad, although a smaller one, mounted on my lathe, and that's where I'll do especially for small stuff like this, I'll do the polishing. Something big, I might swap one of these out. Usually turn it on, impregnate it with the buffing compound, triple E, white diamond. Then I use a backing board. This is quite flimsy and thin, so I'll use a backing board for this and just give it a quick buff. Yeah. With this buffer, you've got to be careful to not catch the edge, and I was lucky I didn't mangle this because this is quite flimsy. And there, hopefully you can see this, it's already come up quite a treat, although I will admit if I oiled it, it would have come up much better, but I didn't want to wait 7 days for the oil to dry. Onto the white diamond. There you have it. Now we'll go over to the lathe. I've got the lathe mounted with one of these small buffing wheels, but I like it only because it can easily be popped out, replaced, much easier than having to undo the nuts on the other one. And only because it's small, I've just got a small buffing wheel on here. Charge it up. I use Canubra wax with this, and again, all this is included in the Beall buffing system. And again, off we go. Oh! No, we don't. Maybe if I seated that properly it would work. Let's try that again. And that's it, I'll show you in a second. For all it's worth, I forgot to mount this moss taper properly. Probably because I haven't cleaned it out for a while. I don't know whether you guys have seen these before, but I got this from one of our wood suppliers. It's just a hard plastic thing that you can then slap in there and spin around just to clean out the shit. As you can see how much dirt there is on that. Yeah, so yeah, they're really good to clean out all the built up dust and grime in there. Hopefully, although that probably might need a quick bit of not so much sanding, but yeah, maybe a bit of a scouring pad. I don't like doing that, but very lightly just get anything off that. Yeah, that's enough. And yeah, that's oh, just the slightest pressure and it's in. So there you have it. Anyway, let's go back to the other room now. When I stopped the last video, I was a bit concerned about some roughness at the top there. And I thought, why the hell is that there? Anyway, to cut a long story short, it turned out to be a bit of fluff that somehow got embedded into this piece, because all I did was give it a quick sand over with this sanding pad, another quick buff, and it's all gone and all that. However, I'm still never happy with half-hearted finishes. As I said, this was buffed up using the buffer, but I thought to myself, well look, I'll make another one. God, he's a pretty guy. And I have made another one, but this one I'm actually going to move over to the other room, and I'm going to give it a coat of oil just to see. Well, I know what, I've got a good idea what it's going to look like, but just to demonstrate to you how the oil will actually make this pop. Alright, over to the room and we'll start filming there. For all it's worth, if some of you have been following my videos, you'll be aware that I've got a pinched nerve in my back which has left me a dodgy left hand. And it turns out that I can only put these type of gloves on. I can't get these around my hands. However, the beauty of these gloves are I can then stuff the brush into the finger of these and keep it moist for the next application without having to wash it out. I also use square jars, so for my oils and stuff like that, so that if the lid jams against it, I can quite easily put it into a vise, get a decent grip and be able to take the lid off. Now I haven't used this, I've used this quite recently, so the lid has come off easily. Alright, here we go. You'll be, well, hopefully you'll be amazed at how nicely this will pop. Look at that, that just adds that extra depth of brilliance to this engraving. I mean, that is, oh, I just love it. The pine is soaking it up quite well. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to give it another coat, only because the more I give it, the longer it's going to take to, hang on, finish that. I can throw that one away and use this new one to store the brush. It's just a, look, a lot of you guys will know all about this, but if you don't, it's just a handy way to keep it moist. Look, with this oil that I use, it'll eventually dry out, but at least it'll last a couple of weeks or months without having to actually wash it out. Alright, as I said, I've only put on one coat. It dries very quickly, or soaks up very quickly, this oil. It's actually popped the wood filler, and seeing as how I'm going to be buffered up anyway, which gives it extra protection, I'm not going to, actually I might even put a coat on the back of it. Oh no. Alright, I'll try not to get it over my hand. It's not like I'm concerned about the getting the oil on my hands. I'm quite happy to wash my hands and I'm not doing that much work. The main reason why I wore the gloves is so I wouldn't leave fingerprints. Although the fingerprints don't show as much on this, as it used to on MDF. What a waste of oil, but and the waste of film I'm crapping on. And that's it. Now look, I don't know whether I'll get to the stage where I'll buff this up and take a video of it, because I don't particularly want to waste about a week or so before I can finalise this video. So, but anyway, there you have it, and that's how I effectively use my wood filler over laser engraving. If I don't do any more about the buffing, Uru and keep safe, and if I do, well, you'll get another Uru and keep safe later on. Uru and keep safe.